I am absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you for that welcome, Reverend Noah. My name is Audra Bullock. I am the founder and CEO of the Friends of Foster Care. We started as an organization based in Norfolk around the Norfolk foster care system and have spread throughout all of Hampton Roads and up to Richmond and several counties in Metro Richmond. We are an organization that's looking to make sure that when children enter the foster care system, they have all the resources they need to thrive, not just survive. And so I'm going to take you through a journey of educating you on what foster care is, what the current state of foster care is, why the outcomes for most foster children are so bad, and what we all can do about it. And then we'll end with some highlights of outcomes that show that there's much we can do to make a difference for these vulnerable youth. So if that sounds all okay, we'll go forward. Lovely. The state of foster care. In the United States, there's over 400,000 children in foster care as of today. It's an ongoing custody case where obviously families, for whatever reason, are not able to adequately care for their children, and the state comes in and takes guardianship of those children for a short period of time. That means that it's got a time constant to it. So children will enter foster care. The objective is to get them out of foster care as quickly as possible. In the United States each year, of that 400,000 that's here right now, there are another 200,000 that are in and out of the system each year. Similarly, in the state of Virginia, we have about 5,600 children in the foster care system. That's up pretty substantially since the pandemic. And we have about 7,000 children that are in and out of or that interface with the system in any given year. The average number of months a child spends in foster care in the state of Virginia is 24 months. That's a little longer than the average. I think across the United States, we're at an average of 20 months in foster care. But you can think of it as a couple of years in the life of a child. And you can imagine that as a child, 2 years is a long time. It's a long time, and it can do a lot of damage. But it is an effective intervention for saving lives. It is an effective intervention for preventing abuse. So let's talk about why children come into foster care and what the ramifications are. In the late 80s, well, let's talk about why. It's not on this chart, but I will tell you. So the number one reason children enter foster care isn't abuse, it's neglect. And we might think, wow, well that's thankful, we're thankful for that. Actually, we're not. More than 50% of the youth entering foster care have been abusively neglected. And what does that mean? It means that there's an absence of a caregiver, there's absence of love, there's absence of nurturing. And what brain science is telling us is that is so much more damaging than physical abuse. Physical and sexual abuse are number 4 and 5 on the list of reasons that children enter foster care. Neglect is number 1. Caregiver substance abuse is number 2. Child's behavior is number 3. And then we go on from there into the physical abuses. But with physical abuse, as bad as that is, it's engagement with a child. And they need that engagement to grow. When children don't have that engagement, they literally do not grow. Infants that aren't held go into a state called failure to thrive. And even though you're feeding them, they will not grow. Their brains don't develop. And so that is an enormously damaging type of abuse for a child. It has very long-term health consequences too. So in the late 80s, there was Kaiser Permanente, a healthcare company, did a study to try and ascertain the link between adverse childhood experiences, what we call ACEs, A-C-E, ACEs, that occur during childhood that end up manifesting or correlating with long-term health impacts. The study tried to boil down different categories of adverse experiences, and they did it into 10 different areas: physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, physical and emotional neglect, mental illness, incarceration of relatives, domestic violence, substance abuse, and divorce, or removal of a caregiver. This study then developed a questionnaire of 10 questions. Do you experience any of these as a child? And if you did, you got 1 point, right? The higher the number of points that you scored experiencing these adverse childhood experiences, the more likely you were to have lung disease, heart disease, liver disease, risky behaviors, suicidal ideation, depression, drug use. And what they found is that people that had 4 or more of these adverse childhood experiences had significant health outcomes or health challenges as adult, and indeed would die on average 20 years earlier. These are the types of things that are happening to children that enter the foster care system. And if we look at our foster care population, about half have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences during childhood that manifest in all of these different health complications, having 3 times the level of lung disease, 14 times the number of suicide attempts, 11 times the use of intravenous drugs, having intercourse by age 15, and 4.5 times more depressive episodes. And the thing about the ACEs study that doesn't capture the essence of foster care is that when we remove a child from their primary caregiver, we're creating an additional ACE. It's not one of the ACEs. It's not one of the questions on the ACE study. So when we say that half of our kids have an ACE score of 4 or more, it's really more than that have a higher ACE score. And so when we look at that, and we know that the long-term health outcomes are there that are poor, we have risky behaviors, we can start to understand some of the outcomes for youth that interface with the foster care system. By and large, they do not perform like their non-foster care peers. And what you see on the left side is a little boy that's split into 2 populations. On the left is foster care population. On the right of the boy is the non-foster care population. And we look at high school graduation rates. We've got 87% for the general population, but only 58% high school graduation rate for kids in foster care. That's if you've ever spent 1 day in foster care or you spent your whole life in foster care. You have a significant chance of not graduating high school. Less than 3% earn a college degree. Only 9% have housing by the age 26. 46% are employed at age 26 compared to 80% of the general population. And we have a very large justice involvement for youth in foster care. 64% of our males and 33% of our females are interfacing with the justice system compared to 9% and 3% respectively in the general population. It's not good. So 10 years ago, when I was starting my foster care journey, and I had a little boy who was 3 years old, his mom had substance abuse disorder. She had 5 children. He was the second youngest. She had adopted out the youngest at birth. And about that same time, or within a month, she decided she can't do him anymore. And she relinquishes him to the social service system. So I have this little boy, and he's tremendously sad. It was heartbreaking to see. I mean, you hear about this as in the foster parent training that these kids are going through grief, but to walk beside them through that grief, it was rough. He was very sad. And I thought, okay, well, he's gonna have toys, and we're gonna love him, and he's gonna have a nice warm home, and we're gonna send him to a good school. And then I learned about all these ACEs, and I thought, oh my gosh, we've got to do something more, because the way the system, the social service system, the government system is investing in these kids he's certain to do exactly what his mom did through no fault of his own. It's just there's not opportunity space to derail that path, to change the trajectory right now. So that's when we decided, my husband and I decided that, well, this is very troubling, we need to do something about this. And so what we did was start to invest resources in these kids. And as we started to learn more about how we should invest, where are the pitfalls, right? What we learned, which was most alarming to me, because when we licensed, we were told, there are lots of babies because of substance abuse, opioids, puts a lot of young children into foster care. Parents aren't making the good choices for their children. Get a crib, prepare for young kids. And then I learned about the older kids in foster care. And I thought, this is not okay. The older kids is what you're seeing on the right side of the screen. And that's the population that ages out. They come into foster care at whatever age. They stay in foster care until the 18th birthday. Those kids that are aging out, and they're 22% of our foster care population in the state of Virginia that ages out, we're the highest in the nation. We're not very good at finding permanency for our young adults. But of those kids, 71% of our young women are going to get pregnant within the first year of exiting care. Most of them will have multiple children within that by the time they're 22. And half of those children will come into foster care. It's like, whoa, that's hard. This is a system that's not only not serving the kids that it's in it, it's creating a pipeline back to itself. So, and the other statistics are that our young boys, 87% of those young men are going to prison for mostly survival crimes. So we have a lot of work to do. When I learned that, that's when we decided that we really need to shift gears. This is a crisis. We can do something about it. We should engage the community to try and do that. And the other thing I want to leave you with, too, is that not only are we not really good at finding our young people permanent homes. Permanency means that you either go back to your family in some permanent way or you're adopted. We're not good at that. We're also not good at keeping children in one home while they're in foster care. And again, if we go back to our ACEs study and we look at what that does when you have a disruption from a primary caregiver again and again and again, it creates that long-term damage that has the terrible health consequences. And for this population, and it's not on the graph, but only 25% of the kids that are aging out of the foster care system get a high school diploma. So you can imagine it is extremely difficult to move on to productive adulthood. Okay, so that's all the depressing stuff. Now we're going to start to feel better. So we decided that there's something that can be done. When we look at the ACE study and we look at the factors that lead to those poor health outcomes and risky behaviors, I'm going to go back just 2 slides. We remove the physical and emotional abuse, right, by removing them from caregivers. We hopefully take care of the neglect by putting them with a family that is going to be better suited to care for their needs. We treat the mental illness. We have housing. We're hopefully not incarcerating them. But what other protective factors can we put in place to improve outcomes, to reduce risky behaviors? And it turns out that education, it's the social determinants of health. It's education, it's stability, it's healthy lifestyle, making good choices, eating well, exercising, and it's opportunity to have hope. And so as an organization, when we were creating our programming, that's what we try to instill in every bit of our programming. So what do we offer? We offer supplemental education access to help bridge those gaps that kids have in foster care, not only from being removed from their home school and missing assignments and all of that, but from the trauma. When children experience trauma, their brains go on high alert. They often live in a fight or flight or freeze state. And if you can imagine Imagine you're on a sidewalk and you're talking with your friend and you want to go cross the street and you go to step out and there's a car coming and you have that flash, that heat that rises through your body, right? And your adrenaline's going. It's there to save your life, and it's a very effective way because you're reacting before your brain actually knows that it's supposed to be saving you, right? It's a miracle of our bodies that we do that. These children live in that state perpetually. And that's what that toxic kind of stress all the time, that's what leads to the long-term health outcomes that are so poor. So when we put them in an education setting with teachers and peers, their brains become on fire and they can't learn. So most of the kids in foster care, separate and apart from the moving school systems all the time, have these learning challenges that look like learning disabilities, but they're not. It's really a manifestation of, I don't feel safe right now in my body with all of these people around me. So the way we approach supplemental education is one-on-one tutoring. You can eventually learn to trust one person, and without all the other distractions around you, you can begin to feel safe and move forward. And we've had a lot of success at that. We hire some of the best teachers around to work one-on-one with our kids in their home. We provide access to extracurricular activities and YMCA memberships, so these children have an outlet of things that are fun to do, that are healthy lifestyle choices, and opportunities to engage organically with mentors, coaches that are healthy adult relationships. We provide birthday and holiday gifts, and you guys help us with that, and we're so grateful, because in those moments when you're away from your family, and very few kids actually get to visit their parents on their birthday in foster care, sometimes it does happen, but most of them on Christmas morning aren't seeing their parents. The social workers are with their families, right? They're far away, and those moments are sad. So you guys are bringing a lot of joy into some very hard moments and making sure that kids know that it's not just the family that's there, it's the community that cares about them. So we're tremendously grateful for that. We also provide we do a lot of outreach like what we're doing here, trying to educate people, recruit advocates and foster parents to care for our children. We take care of some emergency needs, and we have an emerging independent living support program, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of slides. Our outputs are here. It's a whole bunch of numbers. I'm an engineer by degree, and I love numbers, and I do a lot of bean counting, so forgive me for that. But these are outputs, and outputs are really great. We've touched 5,000 kids. We've provided 71,000 hours of individualized tutoring. We've had, 4,200 people in our YMCA membership program, 2,600 weeks of camp. 12,000 birthday and holiday wishes granted, and we've been able to invest about $7.5 million back into the foster care community in the last 10 years over this geographic region. And the yellow is where we are currently. The blue is where we're forging partnerships. But what's most impressive, I think, is the outcome, because you can always provide services, but the services don't always work. So I'm here to show you that our services, our approach, they do work. And they work acutely in the short term. This is our report card from our tutoring program from last academic year. Each year we snapshot the report cards of every child that's in our program, and we use that, aggregate that into our own report card. And we consider ourselves having an intervention at 4 tutoring sessions. Before 4 tutoring sessions, there's really not much that happens other than building a relationship with the tutor. But for those kids that stay past the 4-session mark, and 91% of our kids do, 93% promote, 88% pass all their tutored classes, 86% pass every class. And for me, that one is the shining statistic here, because the general population, I would say, is not even close to that. And the kids that are coming to us for tutoring are failing almost every subject across the board. So the fact that they can move these mountains, and I watch them do it all the time, it is miraculous. You alleviate the stress of survival, you make them feel safe, and they literally take off like a rocket to the moon. It is incredible. And we had 100% of our seniors graduate on time or early last year. So if you compare that to the 58%, or for the population that is graduating now, that was likely to age out, only 25% graduating, it's amazing. And we're not, it's not complicated, it's not this intricate recipe of things. It's pretty simple to get this done, and we spend a couple $1,000s a kid per year. One of the interesting things, and I know we've got to wrap up in about 5 minutes.
We've got about 15.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, great. One of the interesting things we did was look into our data set to see what is the impact on some of the unsavory behaviors associated with the foster care system, the high rates of justice involvement. We tried to do background checks on all of our kids and find out where they were after exit of foster care, and that got a little complicated, and we were afraid of crossing lines. So what we did was we started looking inside the period of time while they're in foster care. We get reports when children go to juvenile detention. And there's a high correlation between being in juvenile detention as a young one and going into the prison system as an adult. When we looked at that, we were looking at what impact does our programming have on reducing rates of entry into juvenile detention. So the charts that you see on the left side are the bar graph, each one represents one of our programs, and its reduction in incidences of going to juvenile detention. I really thought when we looked at this that the tutoring program was going to be it, that it was going to keep kids on the straight and narrow, they're intellectual, cerebral, they're going to know that they should not hang out with the wrong people, and they should keep with their studies, and they won't go to juvenile detention. And while it had a 27% reducing corollary with not going to juvenile detention, the real shining star for us was camp. And I was blown away by this when we looked at it. Extracurriculars reduced justice involvement, or had a correlation to reduced justice involvement of 58%, and camp had almost 80%. And the cool thing was that we looked at youth, the youngest youth in our system of youth that we serve, the youngest that had ever gone to juvenile detention was 12 years old. So we looked at that 12-year-old population, right? So anybody below 12, you didn't go to juvenile detention. Camp, as a young person, as an 8, 9, or 10-year-old, still had that mitigating factor when camps stopped at 12. There are very few camps out there for teenage kids. And we still saw this in 13 through 18-year-olds that weren't going to juvenile detention, this reduced rate, this protective factor that stopped them from this path. So it wasn't just a matter of keeping them off the streets during the summer. There was something about camp that built skill sets that really helped protect these kids from that justice involvement. And an interesting one was that for kids that had all of our programs, they had a YMCA membership, they did tutoring, they did extracurricular activities and camp. Not a single one of those children had ever interfaced with the juvenile justice system. So there's something about that engagement, that involvement, that protects them, like what we talked about in the beginning. We have things that we know that can mitigate or help reverse the impact of the adverse childhood experiences. And so with that, what we did, because we didn't serve, we have one teen camp that we partner with in the peninsula, but it's very poorly attended, to be honest. We decided we would do our own camp. So we created a college immersion camp called Dorm Days. And we took 27 kids that are most likely to age out of the foster care system, and we put them on a college campus. We put them at ODU. We had them sleep in the dorms. We had them eat in the dorms. We taught them all different kinds of life skills. We did team building. We did introspection. We helped them build portfolios, how to dress, how to present yourself, how to interact as a group. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of young people these days really don't know how to interact in a group. It's all on phone. And absent the phone, they don't know how to talk with one another. So we're teaching them those skills. And then that was the first 8 days. And then after that, we took them, obviously they get to see ODU. We took them to Norfolk State. We took them to TCC here. But then we put them on a bus and we took them all around the state, to William & Mary, to VCU, to UVA, Virginia Tech, Radford. We wanted them to experience what you probably did for your own kids when they were looking at going to college, that choice and tour, because our foster parents aren't doing that and the social service system isn't doing that. What was really exciting about this is that, we put them all together because these kids need a support system. And when we put them together like this and we immerse them in an opportunity to bond, they did it in a miraculous fashion. These kids now are like family. And after this 2 weeks, it was a little rough, and now I understand why people generally don't run camps for teens. It's a risky, exciting endeavor, let's put it that way. But the kids bonded in ways that were so strong. I was just amazed. A couple of days into it, there was an altercation between two of the boys. That's why I guess they don't have camp for this age. And we had to put them on timeout. And they were asked to leave camp for that period of time. And the rest of the kids rallied around them and started like a campaign to get them back to camp, printing T-shirts. Let's call him K, one of the boys that had to be excused. Free K. And like, well, that's great, but he's excused and he's still part of the program, and we're going to be meeting every Saturday or one Saturday a month during the school year. He's welcome to come back for that. So he's not in jail. Everything is good. They're like, no. His mom grounded him, and we want her to free him so he can talk to us by text. And I thought, well, that's very sweet that they are rallying around. But to me, the epiphany in this, for our first time through camp with this, was that these kids now are their own support system. This is the family that they will carry forward with them. And that's what we're trying to empower in this group, because they're unlikely to get adopted. Children over the age of 10 are 3 times less likely to be adopted than their younger counterparts. So all of these kids face that aging out, and the statistics that come along with that. But we were really excited. One thing I do want to mention in this, we are conducting a study alongside this program, the Storm Days program, where we're looking at the positive psychology elements that make children or are correlated with transition from childhood to productive adulthood. And there are 3 in the literature. One is hope. And if you haven't heard of or looked into the science of hope, I encourage you to do so. It's a very exciting field. Basically, there's some scientists that have come up with a way to rank your hope. And if you are a high hope individual, you turn out to be more resilient. You are more successful. And you're an excellent influence on your friends and colleagues. If you have 2 people, one has a high hope score and another has a lower hope score, if you put those 2 people together, the person with a lower hope score, their hope score rises. It's kind of like the proverb of a rat in the bucket of milk, and he's swimming and he's swimming and he's swimming. If you don't give the rat hope by pulling him out for a minute, he will die. But if you pull him out and put him back in, he'll live for a lot longer before he gives up. It's that kind of mentality. So hope is very important. Social connectedness, how connected we are and can rely on those individuals beside us and around us. And then our future expectations. What do we think is gonna happen in the future as young adults? And so we're conducting these surveys with these kids as we go along to try and ascertain exactly what it is about camp and the experience of being together like this that makes them do better on the outset, that keeps them away from the juvenile justice system. And albeit it's only been a short period of time, our camp was this summer, and we've only done 3 Saturday academies this school year, but 71% of them showed measurable impact, measurable increases on all of these scales. So we believe that this is something that will be a very exciting element. So I will stop there and ask, I have references, but I will stop there and answer any questions that we have.
Audra, thank you. So I have a mic here. If you have questions, I'll run around and do that. I may get us started and just say, can you tell us a little bit about how someone who's in the foster care system gets into your system?
Okay.
Because you're sort of coming alongside them, but how does that crossover happen?
Excellent question. So we partner with all the city agencies that you see here in yellow, Virginia, all of Hampton Roads, all the way out to Franklin, Suffolk. We're up on the Virginia peninsulas, and then a couple out in Richmond. We partner directly with Memorandum of Understanding. It's a true public-private partnership, a handshake, if you will, on we will provide all of our services for free to the youth in their foster care system, and they will provide us information on who to serve. Highly confidential lists of kids, but we've worked really hard to protect that confidentiality and build trust among the agencies that we serve. So they send us the list of foster youth twice a month. Of who is in their system, and all of those children are eligible. All of those children receive holiday gifts. All of them receive birthday gifts from us. And then we're calling their foster parent or their social worker to engage in the other auxiliary services that we have. But every child that we serve is verified of being in foster care. And we serve them the entire time they're in foster care, however many years that is, and then 2 years after they exit foster care, because we want them to have permanency. And sometimes it's very small things that can disrupt a family. And so we're trying to take care of all of the little things that we can to give the reunification with biological family, or placement with relatives, or adoption with a new family, legs to be able to stay the course. For those youth that are 18 to 21 that age out of the foster care system, we care for them until they're 26 years old. And we're one of the agencies that has the longest, service plan for that age of kids. And the reason that we do that is because we kept seeing these kids come back to us time and time again at 22 and 23 after social service support is done. Any state and federal support, they're all done then. And it's just little things. They can't make the rent payment just this month. They got sick. They're on an hourly job. They need, just a little buffer to help them. And then we're titrating in education. We're not just handing out. We're educating them. We want to make them resilient, productive adults, or at least help them get there. So we serve until 26 years old.
Lovely,
Great
thank you.
question.
Are there other questions folks have as they've been listening to this presentation? I know I have more, but I'll give you guys a chance. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
What is the most helpful support that Bullock can provide you?
So the two things that you guys are doing are the most helpful. It's the helping us with the holiday projects and birthdays. Birthdays we do about 150 a month, but at the holidays we do 2,000 kids. And my staff of 7, it's hard for us to do that many by ourselves. So what you guys are doing is amazing. And then financial support so that we can fund these programs. So for example, our tutoring program, it's a $1.1 million of our budget this year to tutor the population that we do. So it becomes challenging to continue to grow that way, but we've had exponential growth for the last couple of years. So to be able to feed into that and make sure that we're reaching the children that need our services. Thank you for asking that question,
Yeah,
Michael.
Pam, here. This helps for the online streaming recording. Yeah.
How do you find your tutors? Do they have to come through the school system, and do you also have mentors?
It's a great question. So we find our tutors kind of word of mouth. We advertise on Indeed. Our tutors are teachers, licensed teachers, either currently licensed in a school system or retired teachers. We have a few that are not, like we have some university professors that don't have licensure, and we have a few specialty, but most of our kids are taught by teachers. And most of our tutors are special education teachers because we're dealing with a population that is very far behind, has learning challenges and behavioral challenges. So if you know of any teachers, we are always hiring between here all the way out to Richmond. You can apply through our website, thefriendsoffostercare.org. Your second question was
About the mentors, if there are any mentors.
Not proper mentors. We get a little bit into that in our independent living youth program, that dorm days program with the older youth, but it's more of coming in on a case-by-case basis. We do some life skill coaching, so we will hire life coaches from time to time for some of our kids. What we preferentially have done, though, is train our tutors to be life coaches. So we have a training program for that for them so that because they're already engaged with the kids. But tutoring is a big part of what we do, but we don't have a proper, defined mentor program.
Who else? We have any over here? Matt in the back here, and then Melissa.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I came in late. I was dressed as a turkey, cheering her.
Well, I'm sorry I missed that.
I would be interested to hear what draws you personally to this work. Like, what drew you in?
Thank you.
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
And difficult, and so interested to hear from you.
It's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. My foster care journey started probably about 20 years ago when I was living in Hawaii with my first husband, and there was a CNN special segment on these kids in the New York foster care system that were having a hard time finding permanency. They were 8, 9, 10 years old, teenagers, and somebody had made a coffee table book, a picture book of these kids trying to get them adopted. I thought that was very sweet. And then CNN was showing the pictures from the coffee table book and then found some of the kids and interviewed them. And there was this one little boy, he was 9 years old, African-American boy, the biggest beautiful eyes you've ever seen. And he looked at the camera and he said, I know I can be a good son, I just gotta find the right dad. And that broke my heart. It literally broke my heart. I don't know where that child is, but I wish I could find him because I ran outside at that moment. I told Dean, my husband, I said, we're gonna go adopt a kid, he's in New York. And he yelled back, he's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I am, but we gotta do it. And it was really 10 more years and a second husband before I was able to act on that. But it put a hole in my heart for these kids. They didn't do anything. And I will say that most people that get into foster parenting have some kind of relationship to foster care. They either went through foster care as a kid, their parents fostered, a dear friend or relative fostered, so they know something about it. That's 80% of the people. The rest of the 20% are the crazy ones like me that see something and are compelled to do it. I think once you look into this space, though, the need is so grave that you're drawn to it. The hard part becomes when you don't get the supports to be successful, when you desperately want to be successful. And so that's another mission of our organization, is to walk alongside those parents and make the hard days a little bit easier. Even if we're just calling them and say, hey, I understand. Things went off the rail with your child. They're kicked out of school. Nobody's there to help you. You can't get psychological services for a long period of time. We're here. We got you. So to me, it's very personal. It's understanding that children out there need a port in a storm. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you for sharing that, Audra. Last question here.
Hi, thank you, and I'm sorry I was late as well. I'm wondering about the support for the families, and I'm talking about, I think you were talking about the families of origin.
Yes.
And I think that's a very good holistic view at this whole
Yes.
puzzle because it's so important to the dignity of the family to have that support. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate a bit more on what that support looks like and how others can help support your support.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So we're going to divide it into two sections. One is the government support, and then one is ongoing community-based support, which would be us. So when your children are taken from you, you get a caseworker. You have all of this case plan that you have to execute in order to get your children back. And so you have service providers that are supposed to be helping you through that. Once you are reunified with your children, most agencies monitor you and provide supports for 90 days. And then after 90 days, poof, they're gone. 90 days is not long enough, really, to get reacclimated with your child, to make sure things are calm and safe in the household. And so that's where we come in. That's why we do 2 years after reunification. And so for us, what that support looks like is it's a YMCA membership. It's a place to take your child for free free child care while you work out and have a healthy lifestyle and relieve stress. It looks like providing summer camp, and which is effectively child care over the summer. It looks like making sure that there's something under the Christmas tree at the holidays. It looks like, let me send my tutors in and help Johnny with his homework for an hour while you go decompress in the other room. So those kinds of supports. Sometimes in the emergency space, we're getting into helping with rent, we're helping with groceries, we're helping with gas. There's a lot of need out there. And so, yeah, we're here to help channel or harness the community to help those families too, because children love their family. They love their parents, and their parents love them. I've never met a parent, even the ones that have the most egregious abuse or neglect, that don't love their children. It's often a manifestation of what happened to them as children in a vicious cycle. And so if we can help keep families together and heal them, that's really the best scenario, because that stops the cycles. No, thank you.
Audra, thank you very much. I'm sorry for those who may have other questions. I hope that you'll take note of how you can get in touch. Dan, I'm sorry, we don't have time for any more questions because we got to get ready for church. But there are ways in which you can get in touch with TFFC.
Yes.
And we might offer our expression of gratitude for Audra getting up and getting away here to share this with us this morning.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for doing this incredible work and supporting these incredible kids and their families.
Thank you for your
thank you for
support
that.
in doing it.
And we're proud to be partners with you in that, and we'll continue to seek ways to improve upon that relationship. Thank you guys very much, and have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. We appreciate you being here. And the rest of you, we'll see you for church and then for wrapping later in the day. So you've got a full day ahead of you. Thank you.